Hello everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Chanukah, and we will be learning today Mitzvah Hashem Daf Kuf Mem Gimel Amid Aleph. We are in Siman Taf Reish Ayin Gimel, and we are still in Sif Aleph, a very long Sif. So we pick up today on the bottom of Kuf Mem Beis Amid Beis. Actually, we're the second line from the bottom near the end of the line. So yesterday we discussed at length the din of the shamish, and we're continuing the words of the Ramah, and the shita of the Ramah by the shamish is that we take a candle that we're going to use to light the Chanukah Neros. So let's say it's the sixth night of Chanukah. We prepare 6 Chanukah licht, and then we take a candle, we light a candle. We use that candle to light the 6 neros shel mitzvah, and then when we finish, we take the shamish and we put the shamish down next to the Chanukah licht. It's called a shamish because we use it to be mishamish. We use it to serve as the candle that we use to light the other ones, and also because now, if we come to be mishtamish la'orei, if we come to gain benefit from the Chanukah licht, we'll peg the benefit that we get from the light as the light, we're using the light that's coming from the shamish, not the light that's coming from the Chanukah licht themselves. And of course, we saw that this is not lechatchila. It's not that lechatchila, now that we have a shamish, we could just go over to the Chanukah licht and use the light by the Chanukah menorah. No, this is only in case inadvertently we come to use the light of the menorah, we will say that we're using the light of the shamish. Now the Ramah continues 2 lines from the bottom, near the end of the line, and the Ramah says, "V'yesh la'asoisoi yoser aroich misha'ar neros." We should make the shamish longer, taller than the rest of the neros, she'em ba lehishtamesh, so that if we come to gain benefit, to make use of the light by the Chanukah licht, yishtamesh la'osoi ner. Since that one is taller, that one will be casting more light than the other Chanukah licht, which are lower down. So now, if we come to use the light by the Chanukah licht, it will be that we will really be using the light of the shamish more than the light of the other licht, because that one is taller. Says the Mishnah Berurah is Chaf Yoser Arach She'embal Hishtamish Ritzayna Loimar. What the Ramah wants to say is the Kevichu Gadol, since the shamish is taller and bigger than the other ones, Iker Tashmisha Mimenu. That is the one that's going to be casting the most light. So yes, if inadvertently we come to use the light by the menorah, it will turn out that we are actually using the light from the shamish because it's taller than the rest. Says the Chofetz Chaim, you don't necessarily have to make it bigger. In other words, let's say you're lighting your Chanukah licht with Shabbos candles. It doesn't have to be that the 6 Chanukah licht are Shabbos candles and the shamish is a taper that's twice as long as the other Shabbos candles. The candle might be the same size as the other candles, just put it up higher. Okay, now we come to a very interesting halacha over here, and I will confess, before we even go further in this Ramah, I will confess to being somewhat confused by this halacha, but we'll see what the Ramah seems to say and what the Chofetz Chaim seems to say, and I'll tell you what it is that I find a bit confusing, but let's see what it says over here. Says the Ramah, Im nisarev ner Chanukah ha'asur bahana b'sha'ar neros. Let's say a Chanukah licht becomes mixed in with other neros. Now, the ner of Chanukah is asur bahana, because we have seen, and this is what we've been discussing, it's asur lehishtamesh la'orei. You're not allowed to use the light of the Chanukah licht, and we've seen various reasons why you're not allowed to use the light of the Chanukah licht, but bottom line, you're not allowed to use the light of the Chanukah licht. Not only are you not allowed to use the light of the Chanukah licht, but when you light a Chanukah licht, you take a glass, you fill it with oil, you put in a wick, you light it. you have now lit a ner shel mitzvah, and the wick and the oil that's in that ner are now huktzah limitzvasai. They have been designated for a mitzvah. And this is something that we've discussed quite a bit, over the past, several months. We discussed it in terms of sukkah, that the walls of the sukkah, the noise sukkah, the schach of the sukkah, they're huktzah limitzvasai. They're designated for a mitzvah. And once you designate them for a mitzvah use, you're not allowed to use them for any other usage. We said by an esrig and by hadassim, when you set aside an esrig to be one of the daled minim, to be used for mitzvah purposes, now you're not allowed to eat the esrig. Why? Because the primary usage of a fruit is to eat it. You took this fruit, you designated for mitzvah use, now you're not allowed to eat it, because it's huktzah lemitzvasai. By lighting the Chanukah licht, you are now maktzeh, the wick, the oil, they are now huktzah limitzvasai. They have now been designated for mitzvah use, and you can't use them for anything else. Therefore, says the Ramah, an interesting halacha. Let's say you had a Chanukah licht, and now this Chanukah licht became mixed in with all sorts of other lichtalach. We'll make the case a simple case. You had a candle, and you designated this, you're using this candle for Chanukah licht, and now it gets mixed in with 150 other candles. Now the candle that's a Chanukah licht is asur ba'anah. It's huktzah lemitzvasai. The other candles are chulin. The other candles, you could use them for whatever you want. So now you have a problem. You have a taruvais shel isur. You have a mixture that contains within it something that's asur. That's from 30,000 feet. But now let's get a little bit into the nitty gritty. What does it mean that you have a candle and you designated it for mitzvah use? If it's the third day of Chanukah and you take 3 candles and you say, I'm lighting these 3 candles tonight for the ner shel mitzvah. Maybe you even take them and you melt them into your menorah. Are they huktzah lemitzvasai? No, they're not. Why? Because the halacha is hazmana lav milsa. Preparation has no halachic significance. So the fact that you prepared them for use for the mitzvah does not make them huktzah lemitzvasai, because that's only hazmana. That's only preparation. When does it become huktzah lemitzvasai? When you actually do a ma'aseh shel mitzvah with it, that's when it becomes huktzah lemitzvasai. So, when does the candle become huktzah lemitzvasai of neres Chanukah? When you light it. So, it's the third night of Chanukah. You have 3 candles. You go, you make 2 brachas. You light the 3 candles. Now, these are neres Chanukah. You did a ma'aseh mitzvah with them. Now they have been designated as neres Chanukah. Now they are huktzah lemitzvasai. So now let's say you light them and they go out 10 minutes later. We know, we already mentioned this yesterday, hadlaka oise mitzvah. You accomplish the mitzvah of neres Chanukah the moment you light the neres Chanukah. And therefore, kavsa, if they go out, ein zakukla. Really, you're not responsible to relight them. When you lit those 3 Chanukah licht, you had to light them in a manner that they would burn for a half an hour. A half an hour is the shear. So they have to burn for a half an hour from the zman adlaka. They have to burn a half an hour. So, okay, they were supposed to burn a half an hour. But if they went out after 10 minutes, you're not achroi, you're not responsible to relight them. Kavsa ein zakukla. You accomplished the mitzvah when you lit them. They went out, you don't have to relight them. So, now you have 3 candles that are neros shel mitzvah, they're Chanukah neros, and they went out. So, you have candles now that are not burning, but the neros shel Chanukah. Let's say those candles get mixed into another box of candles. So now you have 3 Chanukah ner shel mitzvah candles in the box, and you have 50 other candles in the box that are chulin, that have no mitzvah status to them at all. What's the halacha? That's what the Ramah is discussing over here. Now, there's another wrinkle. The case that I gave you is you lit the Neres of Chanukah. They were supposed to light for a half an hour, and they went out after 10 minutes. Let's change the case a little bit. Let's say you lit them, and they burnt for an hour and a half. So they burnt way beyond the Zman Shel Mitzvah. Let's say it was a 4-hour candle. You know, you could buy those Neronim, the candles that go in the glass that people use on Shabbos. There are 3-hour Neronim, 4-hour Neronim. So let's say you lit these 4-hour Neronim, and you lit them, and they burnt for 2 hours, and then they went out. What's the halacha now? Are those Neres Shel Mitzvah? The Mishnah Berurah is going to say, no, those are not Neres Shel Mitzvah. Because over there, they burnt for the half hour of the mitzvah. We already learned previously that after the half hour of the mitzvah, you're even allowed to be mishtamish by the or of the menorah. You're allowed to use the light of the menorah after a half hour. Because the half hour, that's the mitzvah. Beyond the half hour is only hider mitzvah. So again, if you had a 4-hour candle and you lit it for the Ner Shel Chanukah and they burnt an hour, or even if they just burnt 35 minutes, that's it. The Zman of the mitzvah is done. Now if they go out, those candles, those leftover candles are not asur b'hana. Those are not Neres Shel Mitzvah. The mitzvah was already done. The mitzvah is over with. So the case of the Ramah is specifically where you have to have lit the candles already, because if you didn't light them, you just prepared them, hazman alav milsa, so they don't become huktzah l'mitzvasai. They only become huktzah l'mitzvasai when you light them. Now you lit them, and they went out within a half hour. Now they went out still within the zman of the mitzvah. So now the leftover candle is a ner shel mitzvah, and it's asur b'hana, says the Ramah. And now it got mixed in with other candles. We have a taruvah shel iser, and we want to know what the halacha of that taruvah shel iser is. That's the halacha that this Ramah is concerned with. So let's see again from the bottom, from the last few words of Kuf Ben Beis Amud Beis in the Ramah. Im nisarev ner Chanukah ha'asur b'hana b'shar neris. If a ner mitzvah of Chanukah got, and that's asur b'hana, got mixed in with other neros, afilu echad be'elef, even if one ner Chanukah got mixed in with 1,000 other neros, loy bottle. It's not bottle. Why isn't it bottle? 1 in 1,000? Why isn't it bottle? Explains the Ramah, to have a davar shel minyan. We know that in the halachas of bittul in Yeridea, there are certain things that are very chashuv, and because of their chashivas, they are not bottle. One of them is a davar shebeminyan, something which every unit is counted on its own, right? So normally candles, let's say you sell a box of 72 candles. So you sell the candles by the box. So the individual candles are not a davar shebeminyan. You don't sell them one at a time. You don't sell somebody 2 candles, 3 candles. You sell somebody a box of candles. But Chanukah neros are a davar shebeminyan. Why are they a davar shebeminyan? Because on the first night of Chanukah, you count 1 candle. On the second night of Chanukah, you count 2 candles. On the third night of Chanukah, you count 3 candles. So the neros of Chanukah are a davar shebeminyan. And a davar shebeminyan has an extra special chashivus, and a davar shebeminyan is not bottle. So therefore, says the Ramah, you have this ner Chanukah, this ner shel mitzvah, which is asur b'hana, and it got mixed into 1,000 other candles. It's not bottle, because it's a davar shebeminyan. Oh, so now, if you stop right now, you would say, okay, very interesting halacha. So you have 1 candle that's asur b'hana, it's mixed into 1,000 other candles. We said it's not bottle. I guess I have to throw out all 1,000 candles. There's nothing I could do. Says the Rambam, no, there's an eitzah. What's the eitzah? The eitzah is, ela yadlik min ha'ta'aruvos. If you want to light candles from this mixture of candles, you have to take candles and light kol kach. Ela yadlik min ha'ta'aruvos kol kach. You have to make sure to light enough candles Shebevadai ner shel heter doilek im ner shel iser, so that you know for sure that there is at least one candle here that's a mutter candle, burning together with the other candles, va'oz mutter lehishtamish etzlan, and then you could take benefit from those candles. In other words, in the case that I gave you, it was the third night of Chanukah. You lit 3 candles for the Neres of Chanukah. By lighting them, you were maktzeh them. You designated them for the mitzvah. So now they're huktzeh l'mitzvasai, and they become asur b'hana. They went out before the half-hour zman. So they went out, and they're neres shel mitzvah. Those 3 candles got mixed into 300 neros of chulin. They got mixed into 300 regular candles. Now, you want to go take a candle, and you want to light a candle, you want to use a candle for something. You can't, because all 303 of those candles are asur b'hana. What's the eitzah, says the Rama? Take 4 candles and light 4 candles. If you light 4 candles, you know for sure that you have at least 1 candle here that's mutter, because there are only 3 candles in this whole mixture that are asur b'hana. So if you light 4 candles, you definitely have 1 candle that's mutter b'hana. Once you have 1 candle that's mutter b'hana, now you could go ahead and you could derive benefit from the light of these 4 candles, because we'll peg the benefit that you're getting from the candles to the 1 candle that's mutter b'hana. This is just like the halacha by the shamish. The halacha by the shamish is, on the 6th night of Chanukah, you lit 6 neres of Chanukah, and you're not allowed to be mishtamish la'oram. You're not allowed to take benefit from their light. But since you took the shamish and you put the shamish next to them, now, if you go ahead and you derive benefit from them, we're going to say that you got the benefit from the shamish. So too over here, you have 3 candles in the taruvis that are asur b'hana, but you lit 4 candles. So now go ahead and derive benefit from the 4 candles, and we're going to say that you're deriving the benefit from the 1 candle that's really mutter. Now it's a little bit different, because by Chanukah, we said that lechatchila, you shouldn't go over to the candle and derive benefit. Over here we're telling you, lechatchila, take 4 candles, light them, and don't worry, derive benefit from the light of the candles, and we'll say that you're deriving the benefit from the 1 candle that's mutter. But this is also not really a lechatchila. We're not telling you to do this lechatchila. This is a b'di'evet when you have a taruvis. We don't want to make you lose all 300 candles. So, okay, we're giving you an eitzah, b'di'evet, this is what you could do. That's the case, that's the halacha, and really I just spoke out the bulk of the Mishnah Berurah here. Now let's see the Mishnah Berurah inside. Ois Katan Chaf Aleph on the bottom of Kuf Ben Beis, Amid Beis. Says the Mishnah Berurah. Ois Chaf Aleph. Im nis arev, if you have this mixture, it's Sinai Loimar. What the Ramah wants to say is, la'achar shehudlak. This whole case is only negeya once you already lit the neres shel mitzvah. Shenase by maisa. So you did a maisa mitzvah with the candles. Then nisarev. Then the candles became mixed in with other candles. Dimikaydem lachein. Because if this mixture happened before you ever lit the Chanukah lichtalach, if it's just that you took 3 candles and you prepared them to light them that night, loy nesar, they wouldn't become asur. The hazmanul and their Chanukah lav milsi. Because just the fact that you prepared them for use as ner Chanukah is insignificant. Because hazman alav milsa. Now what happened? You went ahead and you lit them. Now says the Mishnah Berurah, what happened? V'achakach kava. And then they went out. When did they go out? B'soich zman shiuroi. They went out within the half-hour window of the mitzvah of ner Chanukah. Upasak b'trumas hadeshen, and this Ramah is based on the trumas hadeshen. The trumas hadeshen paskins the loy batal afilu be'elef, that these neros shel mitzvah are not batal even in 1,000 candles. Tahainu lital achas b'toichan lahadlika u'lishtamish bay, which means you cannot take a candle from this mixture and light it and make use of it. Why? Because there are 3 candles in this mixture of candles that are asur b'hana, and the 3 candles that are asur b'hana are not batal. V'hu adin ba'odan dolkin. The same halacha would apply while the neiros of Chanukah are burning. Let's say you lit 3 Chanukah neiros, and then some crazy case, you lit 3 candles, and then somebody came and took 100 candles and lit 100 candles, not for Chanukah purposes. Stam, they lit 100 candles next to your Chanukah candles. Now you need a candle, you need a flashlight, you need a candle to go look for something in the dark. You're not allowed to go ahead and take one of the candles and use them. Maybe it's the Chanukah candle. You don't know which one is the Chanukah candle. And the whole reason they're not bottle is because the Chanukah neiros are a davar shebeminyan, and the davar shebeminyan are filu be'elef loy bottle. Or it's Uritzayna loymar, and what the Rambam wants to say is, da'afilu b'makom sheregilu limkar neiros b'mishkal. Even in a region where candles are not a davar shebeminyan. There might be some places where they sell candles by the single candle. So then all candles are a davar shebeminyan, and there's no chiddush that the ner Chanukah is a davar shebeminyan. If in that area the way you buy candles is you go into the hardware store and you say, can I please have 8 candles? So then candles are always a davar shebeminyan. The chiddush over here is, even b'makom sheregilu limkar neiros b'mishkal. Let's say it's a place where you buy candles by the pound. Give me a pound of candles. Give me 2 pounds of candles. So then the individual candles are usually not a davar shebeminyan. Mikamokim, nevertheless, neiros sham mitzvah, Chanukah neiros, hakol moinen oisan b'chalayla. They're a davar shebeminyan because what do you mean you count them every night? On the 3rd night of Chanukah, you count out 3 candles. On the 4th night of Chanukah, you count out 4 candles. The davar shebeminyan chashav u'v'loy bottle. And a davar shebeminyan has a cheshivas and a filu be'elef loy bottle. Ais kat l'chav beis, they have a davar shebeminyan. Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'rashal cholik. The Rashal is cholik on this whole halacha. Upaisik, and he paskins the chad betray bottle. He paskins that no, not true. He disagrees with this whole halacha. He says that the fact that each night of Chanukah you count out the candles, that doesn't give the candles the chashivas of a davar shebeminyan. You're not counting them. The reason why davar shebeminyan I feel about elef loy bottle is because a davar shebeminyan, something that's sold by the count, it means that each individual one has a chashivas. If it's sold by the pound, so the individual candles don't have a chashivas. But if you sell each one on its own, 1 candle, 2 candles, 3 candles, it has a chashivas. The fact that the Chanukah neiros are a davar shebeminyan because each night you count them out, it's not because the candles have any chashivas. It's because the mitzvah requires you to do that. So the Rashal says that this is not a davar shebeminyan shafilu be'elef loy bottle. So says the Mishnah Berurah v'Rashal cholik, and you can see what I just explained outside in the Sharitzianos Chafei. Upaisik, and therefore the Rashal paskins the chad betray bottle, that the Chanukah neiros would be bottled in other neiros in a simple majority. V'ayin b'taz shekosav, and you should take a look at the Taz, says the Chavetz Chaim, who says, Da'afilu l'haramah, even according to the Ramah that's machmir, dafka kishenis arev b'soichim Chanukah t'chashuvinhem. This whole halacha is only negeya if the taruah shel iser happened on Chanukah. If it happened on the 6th night of Chanukah, so you lit 6 Chanukah neiros, and then they went out within a half hour, and then they got mixed into other candles. So now those 6 candles are choshev, they're a davar shebeminyan, and theoretically they could be used as Chanukah neiros the next night. The next night you're going to need 7 neiros. You have these 6 neiros, you could use them on the 7th night. So they retain the cheshivas of neiros of Chanukah. Tehein re'uyin l'mitzvah b'yam ha'macharos. Avalim nisariv b'yam hashmini. But let's say they got mixed in on the 8th day of Chanukah. So last night was the last night that you were lighting neiros. You lit 8 neiros. The 8 neiros went out 10 minutes after you lit them, and now those 8 candles got mixed into 150 other candles. Those 8 candles don't really have the cheshivas of neiros Chanukah anymore, because tonight you're not lighting Chanukah neiros anymore. So there's no mitzvah of neiros Chanukah to do anymore. The choshke lacha became, certainly if they got mixed into a taruvas after Chanukah, this halacha would not be negeya. Kvar batal chashivusay. Whatever chashivus they have as a davar shebeminyan is already gone. V'dina l'kulayalma ki yavish b'yavish ubatal b'roiv. In that case, even the Ramah would agree that they are just batal in a simple majority. Now, I told you that something is bothering me over here. What's really bothering me over here is l'chayra after Chanukah, the whole shaila is gone. If the reason these are asur b'hana is because they were hooked to limud, after Chanukah, the whole mitzvah is over. So, in other words, what's bothering me is, let's say the taruvas happened on the third night of Chanukah. So when the taruvas happened, it was Chanukah. And the three neiros are a davar shebeminyan. And they are asur b'hana. So fine, so I understand. It's a davar shebeminyan, I feel a bit elef bottle. But do they remain asur after Chanukah? After Chanukah, how could you still say that they're hooked to limud? Is an esrig asur ba'achila after Yom Tov? No. We learned that the esrig after Yom Tov is no longer asur ba'achila because the mitzvah is gone. So there's no hook to limud anymore. We said you're allowed to eat it. Let me see if I can just find it quickly, but I'm just about 100% sure that we learned that straight out. Should be in Taf Reish Samach Hey. Taf Reish Samach Hey. Esrig also lechel by Shvi'i. Yeah, the esrig, you're not allowed to eat it on Shvi'i, but you're allowed to eat it Shmini Atzeres. In Chutz La'aretz, it's also on Shmini Atzeres, but it's mutter bachi, right? Why is it mutter? It's mutter because the mitzvah is gone, is done and gone. So after Chanukah, l'chayra, this whole shaila shouldn't be negaya anymore. That's what's confusing me a little bit here. Okay. What did the Ramah say? The Ramah said, what's the eitzah? The eitzah is, if you need a candle for light, so make sure you take from the taruvas and you light enough candles to know for sure that you have at least one candle of heter. And now you'll use the light of those candles and will peg the benefit of the light that you're getting to the one candle of heter. Kol kach shebavadai. Pirish, what does these words mean? Im nisariv ner Chanukah et echad. Let's say one ner Chanukah got mixed into 1,000 candles. So madlik shnayim. So take 2 candles out of the teruvas and light 2. So now we know for sure that you have one of heter. Vim nisariv shnayim o shloisha. Or if 2 or 3 candles of that are asur b'hana, neres Chanukah got mixed in, yadlik echad yoser. If 2 got mixed in, light 3. If 3 got mixed in, light 4. Kedei sheyimatzeh by ner shel heter gamkein, so that you know that you for sure have one of heter. And then ois katan chav daled muter lehishtamish etzlan. And then you could use the light of these candles. Why? The hahadlakas hashamish hu kedei sheyishtamish la'oron. Because that's what we do by the shamish all the time. We light the shamish, and then we have a heter to use the light. Again, lechatchila, we don't go use the light of the menorah, but inadvertently, if we use the light, we blame it on the shamish. Shmamina, we could learn from that halacha, de'emehem b'yachad mutar l'shamish etzlan. V'yesh ben ha-paiskim d'sfira l'hu, there are those paiskim that hold, the dafka shamish ha'omed l'mayla mikol ha'neir shari. This is only true when the shamish is standing above the other neris. Does ikr tashmishar la'ar shamish? Then the ikr light that you're getting is from the shamish. Masha'enkein bazesha b'shtamish la'ar kulan. But if the shamish is on the same level as all the other ones, and you're mamish going and using the light of the whole menorah, harei mishanik am kein min Chanukah. V'hinei b'magid Avram u'prichadash iskimu da'adinim haramah. The Magid Avraham and the Pri Chadash agree with the Ramah. Amnam hagra le'el b'simin reis amadal herich bazeh, but the Gra in Hilchos Shabbos spends a lot of time on this. Umashban, it is implied the Ledvarov that according to the Gra, ein adin azeh muchra v'chein b'maru kitzia. Rabbi Yaakov Emden also mashma the lamaisa yesh lahachmer b'din zeh. We should be machmer. Okay, a fascinating halacha. Let's start Sif Beis over here. Sif Beis, the Mechaber says, Hadlaka oise mitzvah. The lighting of the Chanukah licht accomplishes the mitzvah, and lefikach, therefore, says the Mechaber, im kavsa kaidim sha'avar zmana, if the menorah goes out before the zman of the mitzvah, they're supposed to burn for a half hour. If it went out before the half hour, ein zakuk la, you're not responsible to relight it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what the Mechaber means to say is, Kevan shehidlik tekif kiyam mitzvah. As soon as you light the Chanukah licht, you're mekayim the mitzvah. Lefikach, therefore, in kafsa, if it goes out, a zakuk law, you're not responsible to relight it. Now, this is a very important halacha. Having said that, we just said adlaka oisa mitzvah. When you light it, you already accomplished the mitzvah. Even if it goes out 10 minutes later, you already accomplished the mitzvah. Didn't burn a half hour. Doesn't matter. You accomplished the mitzvah, you don't have to relight it. Having said that, says the Mishnah Berurah, if you lit the menorah in a very windy place, the kavsa, and it blew out, zakukla, you are responsible to it. Lachzar, you have to go back, ulahadlika, and you have to relight it, b'makom she'ena ruach matzui, where it's not windy. Because lighting the menorah in a windy place where it's going to blow out is the equivalent of lighting a menorah that doesn't have enough fuel to burn a half hour. And in that case, you weren't mekayim the mitzvah. You didn't light a half hour licht. You didn't light a licht that could burn for a half hour. So in that case, we don't say adlaka isa mitzvah, you have to relight it. However, you do not make another bracha. Now, we're going to have to see, this that the Mishnah Berurah says you don't make a bracha is in the case where you lit the menorah in a windy place. In other words, let's focus on what the exact halacha that the Chavetz Chaim said is. The halacha that the Chavetz Chaim said is, if you light the menorah in a windy place and it blew out, zakuk law, you're responsible, you have to go back and you have to relight it. And, says the Chavetz Chaim, but you don't make a bracha. Now, the Chavetz Chaim said this is similar to if you lit the menorah and it didn't have enough fuel to burn a half hour, where we're going to see later in Taf Reish Ayin Hey, it says, in Sif Beis, Yesh Mishaimer, Yesh Mishaimer, the Kemen Dadlaka is a mitzvah, Tzarek Shayite Shemen Bener Kidei Shir, Kaid Badlaka. You have to have enough fuel in the nair when you go to light it that it could burn for a half hour. If it didn't have enough fuel to burn for a half hour and you went ahead and you lit it, then you didn't light an air that was able to burn for a half hour. So we can't say that hadlaka is a mitzvah necessarily. So that's what it's similar to over here. You lit the menorah in a windy place. It's similar. You didn't light an air that could burn for a half an hour. So you have to go ahead and you have to relight it. But you don't make a bracha. Now the Shartziyah, the nice cut and lam, it says, why don't you make a bracha? The Shema loy have a barer sheyichbeh, because it's not 1,000% sure that it would blow out. Yeah, it's windy, but maybe it wouldn't have blown out. So maybe when you lit it, you did accomplish the mitzvah. So you have to relight it, but you don't make a bracha. Upashit, and on the bottom line here in the Mishnah Berurah continues the Chavetz Chaim, Upashit, and it's obvious, Tim hu roya or ein nechaz psila. If you go to light the menorah and you see that the wick is pashit not catching, the flame never caught, ubavada yichbe b'mehera, and it's definitely going to go out right away, shein yotzav adlakazu, then you're definitely not yoytz in the mitzvah. V'tzarch medina lachzar lahadlika lachar akviya, then certainly make or a din, you have to go back and relight it with a bracha. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Thank you for joining me for limud HaTorah. The discussion of limud HaTorah should be megan on Gans Klal Yisrael. The Rebbe should say Yeshua's for his parnasa, Sheduchim to all those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the BS God Tzedek, B'meher v'yameinu, Amen. Be well.